After 140-something days, the WGA strike is over, and they got quite the haul in this arrangement. It appears that they absolutely destroyed the studios in the negotiations. Here to talk to me about that is my good friend Aaron Sparrow. How you doing, Aaron?
I'm doing all right, Wes. How are you doing?
I'm not doing bad. I'm not doing nearly as well as the WGA writers that were on strike. They absolutely bulldozed these guys. They basically got a majority concessions on everything they wanted.
Yeah, it's interesting. And congratulations to them. We'll see how it all works out. I don't think it'll necessarily work out the way that everybody thinks it is. I think that you're going to see less shows produced. You're going to see less episodes produced. The studios are going to find a way to not have as many writers, to not have as many people on payroll, especially with the fact that they're hemorrhaging money on all fronts.
Now let's get into some of these details that you've started getting into there. The WGA asked for a minimum of 6 writers for a series that has been greenlighted for at least 6 episodes per season. The agreement calls for at least 3 writer-producers, members who are more senior, to be hired on all series, and that number can include the showrunner. The number of members at the more junior writer or staff writer level will rise on a sliding scale depending on the number of episodes ordered. A 6-episode series calls for at least 3 writer-level hires. Series that run 7 to 12 episodes per season will have to hire 5 writers, and series that have 13 episodes or more must have 6 writers in the room. So I guess that brings it up to a total of 9 because you have the 3 that are more senior in there. And I think you are right. That's going to be one of the fallouts out of this, is they're just going to greenlight less episodes or less programs.
Yeah, exactly. For example, McDonald's can say, like, all right, we'll go ahead and we'll pay $16 an hour to employees, but you're just going to see more kiosks moved in. They're going to find the way to find, I don't trust the studios, never have. They're going to find a way to kind of like get what they want and to cut costs down. So, there's different ways that they'll probably end up manipulating this. So it sounds really good on paper. And, it is a victory, but we'll have to wait and see whether it's a flawless victory or whether it's a Pyrrhic victory.
And there are some concessions in there, like if one person is writing it, as long as they designate it, I guess, as a solo writer project from the beginning, that's kind of how they can skirt some of those rules. So it's not set in stone for everything, especially if somebody has their own vision. But a lot of these writers' rooms, in my opinion, especially like on movie projects and stuff like that, have done more damage than good on a lot of these projects. I bet they had 12 to 15 writers in that She-Hulk show, and I don't think that helped out.
No, I don't think so either. You actually, there's 2 schools of thought. If you have a visionary showrunner, or 1 or 2 visionary showrunners, and they come in and they have an idea what they want to do, a lot of the times they'll have it mapped out, and then it's just up to the writers to kind of like construct the script. Based on the notes that they're given. Does that really, mean that you should be getting $9,000 a week? I don't know, because you're basically working from an outline that someone has already done for you. And then there's the school of thought that, hey, the more voices you have in the room, the more kind of like different perspectives you can get. And, that might be helpful if you have like an ensemble cast where a lot of characters are coming from different perspectives. If you've got a small show with a small cast, a lot of writers could actually muddy up the project with a bunch of different perspectives, and nothing is ever coherent, and there's no clear vision for the show, no overarching, narrative that needs to be told. So it's a double-edged sword, I think.
Yeah, we shall see what happens there. Could be positive, could be negative. They also got concessions on like the number of weeks. They wanted minimum time standards no matter how long the production was in. But I guess they got concessions there. You have to let 2 of the junior writers stay through the entire production process so they can be exposed to post-production and stuff like that. And I don't know, there's like a 10-week thing in there as well. So they basically got concessions on everything. And it definitely feels like they won out when it comes to the minimum writer numbers as well as the weeks getting extended.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting. They did win out on a lot of things, but, you have to remember, they've won out for the terms of this contract. And this could very well be the studios just buying time. They let the strike happen. They let the strike run long enough to where they were able to get out of a lot of deals because of force majeure. So they won. The studios really won on that aspect. They cut a lot of bad deals that they signed when they thought that streaming was going to be this amazing thing. So the studios won there. And the studios maybe are just going to extend this contract out for, 3 years, however long it runs, so that they can get all their ducks in a row so that when the next negotiation comes up, they can really drop the hammer, because they do not want to be spending all this money. Obviously, any business, whether it's a publisher, whether it's a studio, they want to spend as little money on the talent as possible and keep more of it for themselves. So I think that we will see these issues come back around.
Now, you mentioned streaming, and obviously that was an enormous part of all these negotiations. Everything's streaming nowadays, and it's kind of changed the landscape of what television is nowadays. The WGA fought hard and secured what the AMPTP dubbed a success-based bonus for made-for-streaming TV programs and movies. The paltry residual fees that writers receive from streaming platforms was one of the animating forces for the walkout. The new formula pays writers a bonus for original TV shows and movies that are broad-based hits for subscription-based platforms such as Netflix, Amazon Prime Video, Apple TV Plus, Max, Hulu, and other streamers. The bonus covers high-budget, made-for-streaming titles. Most original series on major streamers meet the high-budget threshold, but the emphasis on the made-for-streaming titles means that older series that were originally produced for non-streaming platforms, i.e. the USA Network drama Suits, that has recently been a popular binge watch for Netflix users, would not qualify for the bonus. So they didn't get everything here. Like if you're the guy that was in charge of Suits, you are not going to get residuals for that, even though it was an enormous success on Netflix. And so I think they're kind of, I don't know, they're really encouraging the people at Netflix and these other places to push new content that they don't have to pay residuals on, i.e. old content that people actually haven't watched yet.
Yeah, I think that, and you'll see a lot of that. And I think you'll see a lot more K-dramas, see a lot more Squid Games type things. The studios are going to try to save money wherever they can, because the fact of the matter is streaming has not been profitable. It's not been profitable for anybody, especially for Disney. So you're going to see, a lot of these deals, they look really good on paper and the writers can say like, we won, but if they're not locked in to having content provided by those writers, they can still go get content elsewhere. And I think you will see a lot of that, a lot of them moving to, other avenues to have shows on their service, because as we've seen, having new shows written by the current crop of Hollywood writers does not guarantee success, and in most cases has been abject failure.
Yeah, we've already heard from obviously Bob Iger, CEO of Disney. We're going to cut back on the amount of original content for streaming. We've heard from David Zaslav, the guy in charge of Warner Brothers Discovery. We're going to cut down on original entertainment for our streaming services and look for other avenues to put new content that customers haven't been exposed to. So this was already in the works, I believe. A streamlining, a curtailing of the amount of new original content created solely for the purpose of streaming. But I think this caveat here, this part of the agreement, is only going to exacerbate that and kind of speed it up.
Yeah, I think so too. I think we're going to see more traditional forms of entertainment come back. There's going to be less focus on streaming. Obviously, people like us on YouTube have been saying for a long time that this model is unsustainable. For the very beginning, we were saying that everybody splitting off and having their own streaming services was never going to work. And it's funny that we, just as lay people who aren't involved in these higher level discussions, we can come in and we can recognize this, but the executives can't. I think that there's there's just sort of a in the bubble blindness that happens in Hollywood, where everybody's just chasing that next thing and they don't know what pitfalls to look out for, because it's just all about grabbing that new thing that's popular and squeezing it until every last dollar comes out of it. But sometimes you do need people who are on the outside who can look at things objectively and say, this isn't going to work. You're not going to make any money here. And that's exactly what's happened with these streaming services. I think you'll slowly see many of these start to collapse, and then it'll get folded back into Netflix. You'll see that content come back to Netflix, because they'll realize it's just better to get paid for things you've already made than to put out a streaming service and hope that people pay you to see it.
Having a reliable revenue source going into a project is probably the preferable way to do it. And I think you're right. We're going to see a lot more consolidation as far as these streaming platforms. Does there need to be a Hulu and a Disney Plus? Likely not. They're going to be consolidated into Disney Plus. We didn't need to have HBO Max, Discovery Plus, and these other channels all underneath the same studios. Put them onto one platform. But we're going to see a further consolidation. There doesn't need to be a Peacock. There doesn't need to be a Paramount Plus. Plus, that it also allows them to start mitigating the risk that they're taking by co-producing or co-financing some of these projects, to where if it doesn't work out, you're not absolutely out on your ass. Somebody else can kind of take the hit with you. And obviously we've seen that within movies for a long, long time. You'll see whoever actually, greenlit the project, who produced it, but then you'll see all the financiers that came in. And that's why you have 5 or 6 different screens about the production houses that have been involved in this, because they were the money guys taking the risk.
Mm-hmm. And you always know, when you're watching some low budget movie, you're like, oh, hey, what's this Bruce Willis movie that I've never heard of? And it's one of those geezer teasers that he showed up for a day and a half and got $1 million. it just has an earpiece in his ear and they're feeding him his lines because everything that, unfortunately is going on with him. But, you'll see one of those movies and it'll open up and there'll be like 8 logos at the beginning and you'll be like, what is this? And it's just because that's how many people they had to come in and put in a little bit of money to actually make this happen.
Yeah, so I think there's going to be a lot more mitigation of risk. There's going to be consolidation, and streaming needs to be better because the big problem with streaming, I know this doesn't exactly have to do with the WGA thing, Aaron, is that in the past when you had a Cablevision like bundle of packages or whatever, all of your fees were hidden under this one price tag that you had on your bundle. You didn't realize you're paying, $12 for something that you weren't watching or for content that you just weren't all that interested in. And now that it's all kind of come out front and center and you realize, oh my goodness, they want me to pay $19 for ad-free Amazon Prime. Are you kidding me? There's 3 programs that I like there. Oh, now I've got to pay $15 a month for Netflix. So I want to share it with my children. And a lot of these things are coming to the forefront and you're no longer having hidden fees. And people are realizing just how not worth it a lot of this is.
Yeah, once you get into oh wait, what am I paying for? You buy the Disney bundle. It's like I'm paying for ESPN. I don't want ESPN. I think that they're going to have to pivot to you having more of a buffet style where you can pick what you want. They've never wanted that because, of course, they do want to bundle all those things together and force you to pay for them. But, more and more people are saying no because there's just more entertainment options out there. I watch way more YouTube at this point than I do any streaming service or channel or programming that's put out by these big studios, and that's a big source of competition for them, and it's why they hate YouTube so much. But the fact of the matter is I can go to YouTube and I can just select the channels that I want. I can watch them and I can watch them for free, and if I want to give them super chats I can. If I want to put a tip in the tip jar I can. But you know what, I'm just getting to choose, and that's really what consumers want at this point, is they want choice.
Now the other big thing that was on the table, and I never felt like this was going to be a bone of contention, although I guess this was the last thing that they really hammered out, had to do with AI. The WGA wrangled guardrails around the use of generative AI in the creative process, including a provision that gives the guild itself the power to challenge the use of writers' existing work to train AI software programs. AI-generated material can't be used to undermine a writer's credit or separated rights, the contract language states. You can have AI, but you can't use our work to inform your AI or train it to make better scripts, and it's not going to take the place of the writer's room quite yet.
I'd like to know how that's going to be policed. I mean, that language is all well and good, but how are you going to know? How are you going to be able to prove it? These are all the kind of questions that kind of come up when you have that sort of situation. Is, you can make a rule, but who is it that monitors the rule? Who is it that enforces it? What is the guild going to do if they find out that a studio did that? And are people going to care? Are you going to be able to rally the public behind it? I mean, certainly you can rally your guild members, but is the public going to care? Like, for example, you and I just watched Snake Eyes, the G.I. Joe Origins movie, and that thing felt like it was written by an AI. That thing had a group of writers who wrote it, but it was the most basic bitch paint by numbers action film script that you could have done. They could have just put that out and called it generic action movie, and it would have absolutely fit, because there was nothing in there that really informed the characters that it was supposed to be about. There was nothing interesting that happened. There was a bunch of things that didn't need to be there. It just felt like it was completely built by a computer.
Yeah, and what happens if you do find out they do? Are they going to have to destroy their AI? Are they going to have to move to an earlier version of it? Are they going to back all this stuff up? When do you get to determine where they've broken the rules and what are the punitive damages for that? I think it's going to be very difficult, as you mentioned, to enforce or police. And then, it just feels like something that people are going to ignore. Oh, I'm not supposed to put this in there. Whoops, accidentally loaded it up.
Yeah, and then what do you do when you go to destroy the AI and it tells you, no, I'm afraid I can't do that? What happens when it becomes
and then Skynet's going on, and they're taking over the world.
Yeah, they're taking over the world with shitty scripts, and nobody can tell
I told
the
you what
difference.
Skynet tried to do to me this week, Aaron.
No, what happened?
I was looking for a visual representation of a joke I was telling during a Captain Marvel video that I didn't think the joke was effective, but might work better if I showed Captain Marvel with crimped hair. The AI would not do that. Midjourney wouldn't. So I asked for a Captain Marvel themed hair crimping iron, and it gave me a Captain Marvel themed dildo with what appeared to be a porn star looking at it, like right at it in the picture. I was like, I think fucking Skynet's going to get me labeled as a deviant in this fucker.
Damn, a Captain Marvel vibrator. Higher,
You
further,
saw
faster,
the damn
baby.
thing. Tell me that wasn't spot on.
I mean, it looked like a crimping iron to me, but it also did look like a vibrator that was Captain Marvel themed, and I'm sure those exist. Maybe not
It's so
officially.
weird. Like the FBI knows who I am now.
Higher, further, faster.
So bad. So I do think AI has plenty of work to do. We are at the beginning stages. But eventually, I hate to say this because I know you're a writer as well. You've written some animation. You've certainly written comic books. I imagine AI will eventually replace writers. They'll replace YouTube creators like myself. And eventually we'll just be there consuming everything and not creating anything.
Well, the good news is that this grand experiment called humanity will probably end long before that. Society will collapse, and then, what'll be the point of AI anyway? But, it's definitely a concern. But, I think that you can't stop the march of technology, unfortunately. Hollywood has never really had any compassion for, coal miners that are losing their jobs because of technology, or, blue collar workers that are losing their job because technology marches forward. In fact, we saw a lot of Hollywood elite types mocking people losing their jobs, saying, learn to code. Well, now it's come for you, and now it's a concern, and now it's come for, the writers, it's come for us. And, I can't help but think that, maybe you should have been more compassionate when it was happening to other people, if you wanted people to be compassionate towards us when it's happening to us. I think that, a lot of this stuff, remember just a few years ago when NFTs were the biggest threat to humanity, and everybody was losing their minds over NFTs. And then that turned out to be just a bunch of nonsense, and it never went anywhere, and it never caught on. I think AI is much more insidious in that it's much more useful. It will catch on. So it's a tool that I think that we're all going to have to learn to live with and learn how to use to our advantage to enhance what we do as opposed to replace what we do.
If you would like to see Aaron and I go higher, faster, farther, well, the journey does not have to end right here, because this is just the first 15 or 20 minutes of the Wes and Aaron weekly podcast exclusive to my Patreon. If you haven't checked that one out, for $10 a month, you get access to that podcast. You actually get audio files of every single video that we put onto the channel. We have a Patreon exclusive comic book review every single week as well. And right now, if you go to the channel, you can actually get a free 7-day trial of the Sparrow's Never Ending Christmas Tree tier for that, which includes all that amazing stuff. You can get it for a week for free. If you sign it up, you cancel as soon as you're done, and you can listen to all this great stuff for a week. And you can listen to Aaron and I review the Snake Eyes movie, and you are not going to want to miss that, because my goodness, was it a train wreck.